Welcome to the channel, friends. This is a very special podcast I have recorded with Ali Irani. Ali Irani is someone who I came to know 4 years back, almost 3 or 4 years back, while I was delving through my own personal finance journey, and I was trying to improve my personal finance knowledge. I came across one of the group on Facebook, which is called as SimplyFI. Ali Irani was helping out many people on that group, and later on I found that he was a moderator of that group as well. This group of SimplyFI is very informative. If you are thinking to improve your knowledge on personal finance, especially if you're living in the UAE, you should join this group. In this podcast, we have discussed about passive income, we have discussed about financial independence, we have discussed about legal scams. This is the first time I have heard this term actually. Legal scams. We have discussed about insurance industry, how you should be staying away from some legal scams of that kind. We have discussed a lot of things. We have discussed how a normal expat should work through their investments. What should be the step-by-step way someone can be independent in their finances. So I won't take a lot of time in this intro. Let's get directly into the podcast. So Ali, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for
Thanks,
having me.
thanks for coming. And we've been in touch for last 6 months now.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah. And the first meeting was in the Dubai Mall, and it was we started, and I think it took us 2 hours to continue the conversation.
Probably more. I think it was longer, but
Yeah,
yeah, around a couple
yeah,
of
because
hours.
we our hobbies, or let's say our minds matches, at least in content creation and investment.
And I think we ended up discussing and talking about cameras and things like that and
Yes.
gear.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it was
So
fun.
basically, I wanted to discuss about general misconceptions of investing, and people who are living in, especially in the UAE, they are doing a lot of mistakes. I've been in touch with so many people that talks about investing in a very difficult manner, and in a way that I think they are going in a wrong direction. So before jumping into that, just let us know about first how you end up in Dubai and what is your journey so far.
Sure. Basically, my background is not in finance or personal finance or anything. I'm primarily into IT. So
Ah,
this
okay.
is where I studied my studies were in information technology. And I've been in Dubai for nearly 17 plus years now. And my day job is primarily in IT consulting and professional services in the sector of IT, uh, cybersecurity to be more accurate.
Right.
And the thing about the finance is something I kind of discovered on the side because as you probably know, coming to Dubai, we as expats basically we left everything back home
Mm-hmm.
and we came for better opportunities. But the thing is, once you leave your home, you no longer have access to your pensions and whatnot. So at one day, I was just thinking to myself, if one day I would stop working, or even after a few years, if I leave my job or reach the retirement age and want to go back home, do I have enough money to retire, and do I have enough money to support myself and my family? And the answer was quite alarming. So I just discovered that I was kind of living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find some way to kind of find some sustainable income for the long term to support myself in retirement. And this is why I kind of started reading a little bit more and researching about how to save for retirement and how to sort of save and invest so that one day you can have some sort of passive income that can support so that I can support myself and my family in retirement.
Yeah.
And this is how I came across the word of personal finance, how to manage your finances, how to save and invest, etc., etc.
When was this realization? As you said that you've been 17 years in Dubai.
Correct.
When was the first realization that it came?
It was a bit late, I might admit, because, like I said, once you come to the UAE, which is a great country, you get into the you get into that consumer
Spending
hamster,
behavior. Yeah.
exactly, hamster wheel.
Yeah.
So you end up like you have a decent salary, but then again, your expenses would rise. So I used to find myself spending pretty much everything I used to earn. So and obviously, this is not sustainable. So I came to realize this in my late 30s, early 40s, which is a bit late,
Hmm.
but it's never too late.
It's never too
That's
late.
a beauty
Yes.
thing. That's the beauty about this. It's like it's never too late. Yes, if you start early, I mean, the sky is the limit. But it's never late to start. So
Yeah.
better late than sorry, as the
Hmm.
saying goes.
So when you realize, by the way, how did you realize that? Okay, I understand that you might were having some bad patches, bad phase, or let's say you just saw one of the videos on YouTube, something like that. How was the trigger? What was the trigger point?
Good question. The first light bulb was me reading one of the classic personal finance books, which is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
So it kind of introduced me to the idea of how to basically invest and how to basically build some sort of passive income which is not related to your salary, because I
Yeah.
mean the salary is not something that is sustainable on the long run.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad was a good book, but it did not give me any practical advice. Yeah, the concept was great. It's like make sure that you have create some kind of passive income, etc., etc. But then it did not have any practical advice. So then I came across another book by Tony Robbins, which is Unshakable: Your
Mm-hmm.
Financial Freedom Playbook.
Okay.
And after reading this book, I kind of realized how the financial industry is there to kind of get you.
Mm-hmm.
So, the banks, financial institutions, wealth planners, wealth managers, these are all to get your money. It's like to make money from you and not necessarily for you.
Yeah.
And then I came across the idea or the concept of investing in index fund, which is like a sustainable and proven, or let me say, a, um, an academically proven way to build wealth for the long term. And the beauty of it is like anyone can do it.
Hmm.
So because to me, investing was like, sitting in front of your screens and having like monitoring the stocks, buying this, selling that. But the thing is, it's much more simpler. So anyone can do it. And once you grasp the basic idea of it,
Hmm.
anyone can do it basically without any help.
So let's say if we talk about anyone who is coming into Dubai, because there are so many things. Once you come into Dubai, you've got so many avenues opened up for you. Because talking about myself, I'm from Pakistan. So if people are from Pakistan and thinking about investing, they have very limited scope because of the geography you are living in. Because you cannot invest in, let's say, US market directly. If you don't have, let's say, bank account from overseas, you cannot invest in the US stock. Or even you cannot if you want to straight away buy a property in Dubai, you cannot do it while living in Pakistan, having the money in Pakistan. But once you land in Dubai, you have all the avenues open up, not only for, let's say, investing, but also for spending. So let's say if a person who's coming into Dubai, what should be the baby step, as Dave Ramsey says? What should be the babies? Because the problem is, once we read these kind of authors, Robert Kiyosaki, Dave Ramsey, and these kind of guys, they are from a country which is a land of opportunity, which is the US.
Yeah, correct.
You cannot do the borrowed intelligence, and you cannot borrow their intelligence directly and implement it directly. Let's say, talking about UAE in that case, many things are common, but a lot of things we have to implement the right way that this region has to offer. So how do you say, let's say, if a person is coming into the UAE for the first time for a job, or let's say for a business, how one should take steps towards financial independence? Because that is the main goal in my I don't have the goal of buying a new car, or I don't have the goal of, let's say, buying a new house all the time in my mind. But my main goal now is to, and that too for last 3-4 years. Before that, I was also not thinking like that, but for the last 2-3 years, I've been thinking about financial independence. So from the day one, how one person should step into this domain of financial independence?
Sure. Maybe there are two aspects to this question. So let me first start real quick by identifying or defining financial independence for those who don't understand it. So financial independence, or sometimes called financial freedom, is the status of reaching a stage where you don't rely on your job to support yourself. So basically, it's about having some level of wealth, or some, let's say, having enough money or wealth, or a certain amount of passive income that will cover your expenses. So once your passive income can cover your expenses, you have reached a stage where you no longer rely on a paycheck.
Hmm.
And by the way, there's I think financial independence is not about retiring per se. So you could stop working if that's what you want. But once you reach financial independence or freedom, you could still continue to work if that's what you want, or if that gives you the pleasure or fulfillment. So that's totally fine. But at the very least, it gives you the peace of mind that you no longer have to work to sustain or to basically pay for your expenses. So you have now your passive income is enough to pay for your expenses, and whether you work or not, that's entirely up to you. And that alone gives you the peace of mind of you no longer have that stress of going to work, and you have to make ends meet and whatnot. So this is in a nutshell what financial independence is. So again, it's reaching a stage where you no longer have to work in order to support in order to pay for your expenses, because your passive income will basically pretty much cover your expenses. Now, what would someone who just moved in or who is just starting need to know in order to reach that kind of freedom? And by the way, people make that mistake. It's like, oh, I need to be a billionaire or a millionaire in order to be financially free. Not exactly. And maybe if we get some time, we can explain that later during the discussion. So in a nutshell, it's the first step to me is living below your means, because this is a trap, especially for people, again, coming to the UAE, because you have like an easy, let's say, line of credit. You could buy a fancy car and you can pay for your stuff using your credit card and whatnot. And that's all well and good. I have nothing against any of this, provided that you are managing your expenses in a way that your expenses are lower than your income. Because the minute that your expenses exceed your income, then you get into that death spiral of debt, or getting into debt, and this is really a downward spiral that is really destroying from a financial perspective. So the minute you have your income, or your expenses that are lower than your income, and this gap between your income and your expenses, this is the seed that you can plant, so that later on you could build your financial security using that difference. So in a nutshell, the way we build financial security or financial independence is by living within our means, which means spending below our income, and we use that gap to build that security. And how do we build that security? Is by saving and investing, I would say, for the long term. And when I say investing, people get the idea of, yeah, maybe I would invest in something and it magically turns me into a millionaire. Maybe that could happen, or it happened for some, but it doesn't always work that way. So the best way and the sustainable way to build wealth over the long term is to consistently saving and investing until that snowballs into a fortune.
And in the beginning, it might not seem a lot, the dividends, let's say, you're getting, or the reward that you're getting from your investment, it will not be much, and that might stop you from investing further. But what I've seen is the snowball is actually going to work in maybe 2, 3, 4 years once you down the line, and then you will see the reward that you've been working on. And so basically, UAE is the tax-free haven.
Correct.
So once you come here, your income is not taxed, but of course the expenses are there. But at the same time, I tell people that, let's say, if you're going to Canada, if you're going to the UK, if you're having the similar kind of salary that you're getting, let's say, in the UAE, you're going to tax a lot in those countries. Let's say 40%, sometimes 35%, 30%, whatever the case is. So I tell the people that why don't you guys tax yourself? Because if you know that, because once you are retired, you will not get those benefits that those countries are offering.
True.
So here in the UAE, you have to build that corpus, or build that kind of portfolio yourself. So if you're thinking, let's say, if you're getting 30,000 dirhams a month salary, and let's say you're not getting taxed anything, but same kind of salary if you're getting, let's say, in Canada, let's say, then you will be taxed at, let's say, 35 to 40% of your amount. There you will be surviving anyways. So why don't you try doing the same in this country as well, and then build up the and on top of that, those people in Canada, let's say, they are also saving on top of that, let's say, tax.
Yeah.
So why can't we do this here? Because the problem is, here everything is very much accessible, reachable. So you can buy the car just going there, and even a while before, you don't have to have the credit history as well. Now it's things are in place now. So for a new person, it's distracting while coming to the UAE. What are some points before you go into other things? But what about the points people have to know while investing? Because I know a lot of scams as well. Not scams in terms of scams, but let's say there are things which are hidden to you while you're going into any of the investment. So if you can talk about that for in the perspective of a newcomer.
Sure. I mean, the example you just mentioned is awesome because, like you said, if someone is living, let's say, in Canada or in any Western country, the first thing that you get is actually you get taxed on your salary before the salary hits your bank
Yeah,
account,
yeah.
right? Which is something we don't know, we don't have in here, which is great. But the thing is, people usually complain about the taxes. Yeah, I'm paying taxes and whatnot, but then they adapt, right? So they're paying maybe 30% of their salary in taxes.
Yes.
They consider it like this is the tax I'm paying for the government or for whatever the case might be,
Yes.
and they just continue. I mean, they adapt and move on. But here, I mean, a typical advice that I usually stand behind is like pay yourself first. And what do I mean by that? Just consider this, you're saving as your tax for your future self. I mean, you're taking a small portion of your salary or of your income, and you're putting this aside,
Yeah.
either to save or to invest it, and this is basically for your future self. And the way I would like to do it, and because many people say, you know what, let me just pay the rent, and I go and buy that TV or that
Phone.
phone or fancy bag or whatever that is that I've been eyeing for a while. And then if I'm left with some money, maybe I'll save and invest them. So this is honestly, this is the wrong way to think about it. And the best way to go about saving is to pay yourself first. And what I mean again by paying yourself is like taking that portion of the salary as soon as it hits your bank account and putting it aside. And one way to do it while completely moving yourself out of the equation is to automate that. I mean, many banks allow you to create sub accounts, or maybe you could create another bank account in another bank, and as soon as your salary hits your, let's say you get paid on the last day of the month, and then you could create what we call standing instruction, which is like it's an instruction you tell your bank. Sometimes you could do it online, or in some cases by visiting the branch, and it allows you to take a small portion of the salary. You decide 2,000 dirham, 1,000 dirham, whatever that is, a small portion of your salary. It's automatically deducted from your main bank account, and this goes into a special savings account. So the thing is, once this is done automatically, you're no longer tempted to use that money for that TV or for that fancy camera, as we were discussing earlier, or that fancy stuff that you've been eyeing for a while. So this is how I believe paying yourself first and getting into the habit of paying yourself first. This is the best, I would say, strategy that will allow you to save and possibly invest on autopilot without you having to think about it.
Yeah. So for that, recently what I've implemented for myself is if I'm buying anything for my needs, it's fine because needs are something which you cannot forego. But if I'm going to buy something for my wants, then in that case I'm going to invest the similar kind of money in either the stock of that company or similar kind of company, or at least invest in some place. So let's say if I'm buying an iPhone, which I actually, for me as a content creator, it's a need. But let's say if I'm talking about in a general perspective, it is sometimes my want as well, because maybe I don't need the, let's say, iPhone 15 Pro Max with 1 TB. But if I'm investing, let's say, in this kind of device, I should also think about investing the similar kind of amount into the stock of Apple, or not only Apple, let's say any index fund, or let's say even a fixed deposit or anything like that. Because if I have this mindset, if I don't have to buy any specific thing and it's only my adrenaline that is asking me to buy this thing, I have to again think about if I can actually invest this, let's say 6,000 dirhams of iPhone, then I have to invest 6,000 dirhams worth of money into some kind of investment platform. Then I might be resisting to buy such kind of thing. And not only that, let's say if I'm going to buy a car, and car is my, let's say, need, But if I'm buying a car, if I'm buying a, you can say, Land Cruiser, that is costing me 300,000 dirhams, and at the same time I can buy, let's say, an Xterra, which is I don't know how much, let's say 120, 130,000 dirhams, whatever. The difference between my need and want is there. So my want is Land Cruiser, and my need is a small car. So the delta I can invest somewhere. So if somebody start thinking like that, they will automatically resist buying expensive stuff which is only for their wants, and going to buy those things which are for their needs. So this is my kind of I'm also sometimes people asking me how to go about it, so I tend to tell them about such kind of things.
Well, first, let me go back to the idea. It's simple, but not necessarily easy.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it requires to have some systems in place. And by the way, when I say systems, I always like to keep willpower out of the way, because willpower never works, right? I mean, willpower, you could tap into it maybe once or twice, but then it gets into the way. So basically, what I like to do is, as like I said, automate, take that part as soon as your salary hits your account. It's there, it's gone.
Right.
It went for the saving part. Now, going back to your question, saving enough or saving by itself is not enough, because the thing is, when you save money in the bank, even let's say if you're getting interest or profit or whatever that is on that money, it won't keep up with inflation. And maybe let us real quick explain inflation for those who don't understand it. Inflation is like, this specific phone used to cost, say, 2,500 dirhams a couple of years ago. Now it's 3,000. And in an equal manner, a chocolate bar would cost, let's say, or you used to cost 10 dirhams last year. This year now it's costing 12 dirhams. So that small increase in the price is inflation. So that means the money today has a lower buying power than it used to have, say, a year or a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So this over time basically eats up the buying power of your money. So basically, in order to keep up with inflation, you need to invest your money. And by investing, we mean that you need to make that money work for you instead of you working for that money. And like we said, what are the possibilities of someone just like you and me, who is not a financial guru? I'm sure I'm not, and
Yeah,
probably
same
you're
for
not.
me. Yes.
So we're just like maybe financial
Studying, actually.
Exactly. So we're just trying to learn about personal finance and whatnot. So for someone who doesn't understand anything about finance, the easiest thing to invest in. And by the way, before we get to that, let me just real quick cover the three major pillars, if you will, of passive income. So passive income, which is money that is passively made without me having to work for it. So we have three major sources of passive income. Number one is obviously real estate. And example, if I buy a property and I rent it out, so the rent that I'm receiving at the end of each month or at the end of each quarter or whatever, so this is passive income, because once I rent the property out, I no longer have to wait to work for it. The second passive income, or the second source of passive income, is actually the stock market or the financial markets in general. So basically, by buying stocks or shares in companies, and then you have dividends or the stock price appreciates, and that kind of provides you with some sort of passive income. And the third option is basically to have some sort of a business that is self-sustaining. And now let me explain a little bit. By business, not every business is considered to be a source of passive income. For example, if I'm a consultant and I need to work 40 hours or 50 hours per week to to bring in money, it's no longer a passive income.
Yes.
But however, if I, for example, own a restaurant, and then I have a restaurant manager and a cook and the chef and whatnot, and the waiters and working for me, so I don't really have to be in the restaurant, and then it continues generating passive income. Maybe I have to stop once or twice a year to check the books and whatnot, but in a sense, this is passive income. So going back to what the practical person or the someone who's not into any of this, how can he or she start his or her investment journey? I would say what I found that actually worked for me is basically to invest in low-cost index funds. And maybe let us real quick explain what index funds are for the audience. Index funds is It's basically when you invest, let me maybe take a step back here. When you invest in a company, let's say, I don't know, Microsoft or Apple, since we mentioned Apple before. So you buy shares of Apple, so you become a shareholder in the company, right?
Yeah.
So you get a small portion of the profits that are made by Apple, and they get distributed to you as dividends. So by owning a share or multiple shares of Apple, you are owning a fractional ownership in a sense in that company. Now, the the complexity in this is, which company do I need to buy? Should I buy Apple because I believe it's a good company, or should I buy BMW, or should I buy Johnson and Johnson? It's hard. I mean, for the regular person, even for the professionals, it's hard to guess which company is gonna do right. And many people make that mistake. Oh, I think that Apple is a good company, so I think investing in Apple is a good thing. Not necessarily.
Or the company's shares are fallen now, it's a good time to buy.
Exactly. So the thing is, nobody can time that
Yes.
correctly. Even the professionals cannot do this correctly. However, if we buy the entire stock market in the form of an index fund, let's think of it as a basket that has pretty much everything. All the companies, all the stocks, all the shares of the companies are included in that basket, and you just buy the entire basket. And over time, historically speaking, we've seen that this basket returns pretty much around 10% per year over the long term. Not every year, not every single year. Some cases, the market dips. In some cases, it returns much more than 10%. But the thing is, over the long term, it has been consistent in a way. Over the long term, the average income or the average returns of the stock market has been 10%. So basically, by buying this basket, you are pretty much tapping into all the stocks. You're buying everything without you having to do any research, and it gets the guesswork. So basically, it takes the guesswork out out of the equation. And
Okay.
the way we do this is by simply opening a trading account in one of the we call them stockbrokers, and you just buy. I mean, as expats in the Middle East, or as people living in the Middle East in general, or as non-Americans, the only available way for us to tap into that basket, as we called it, or the index fund, is buying what we call ETFs, or exchange traded funds. So it's as simple as opening an account in one of the stockbrokers, and then you buy basically one or two of these baskets, and that's pretty much everything you need to do. And you just keep adding money each and every month, or whenever you have money to put aside, you just buy the exact same basket over and over and over again. And in 20 years' time, I can guarantee that you will retire with more money than you ever thought possible.
Yeah, you're right. And then on top of that, I was just thinking about the process of building systems, because you're right that we cannot have the willpower always there. You cannot have the motivation always there. You have to have a system built around it, and you do the YouTube as well, and I do the YouTube as well. So at least from that YouTube, I have seen a lot of things. To be consistent on YouTube, it's almost the same as to be consistent on your financial health, because on YouTube you have to let's say upload videos frequently. Similarly, for being financially aware, and to have better health for finances, you have to make a system. So let's say you're making a system to invest every month, every 15 days, or whatever the case is. Similarly, for content creation as well, sometimes people tell me that we lose the motivation. I said, see, there is no motivation involved if you're doing something for a longer term. So if you're doing for a longer term, you have to make a system. If whatever come what may, you have to invest anything in you, whatever you think about, just invest that money into whatever the allocation that you've made on a regular basis. You cannot do let's say if I don't have enough money this month, I cannot invest this month. So if you come into that kind of mentality, that is not going to be sustainable for you.
That's very correct. So in terms of automation, and maybe let me share a hint or two with the audience, I mean, about what I'm doing at the very least. So I usually plan ahead. Now, for example, if we're coming to the holiday season, be it Christmas or Eid or whatever the case might be. So if you know that during this time of the year, or maybe during the summer where you will travel maybe with the family and whatnot, So if you know that you're traveling each year, and then you need to spend, or maybe in order to, you have some spikes in your spending every once in a while. One thing that I would like to do is to take basically whatever I expect to spend during summer vacation or Christmas holidays or Eid or whatever the case might be. I just take that amount that I expect to spend based on my history. So I know more or less what I do spend during my summer vacation or during Christmas or whatever. So I just take that amount and I try to spread it across 12 months. So say, for instance, when traveling with a family, you spend, I'm just gonna throw anything, 12,000 dirhams during summer when you travel, right? So instead of having this spike of 12,000 dirham that you have to pay, let's say during the month of July, for instance, I just take this number, which is 12,000. I took a number which is easy to work with, and I spread this across 12 months. So each month I take, in a similar way, 1,000 dirhams. I put them in a special sub account or a saving account that I call my travel or my fun account or whatever that is, and I just save 1,000 dirhams in that account. So when July is around the corner, I have my money which is ready to spend guilt-free. So I don't really have to worry that much about dealing with that spike in my spending during summer or the holidays or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, planning will remove all the surprises. If you plan
Correct.
properly, there might be many surprises. By the way, we haven't talked about emergency fund. The main thing is the surprise element should be covered through the emergency fund. But if you're going to a travel or let's say a holiday, this is not a place where you can invest your like spend your emergency fund. The emergency fund is for the surprises.
That's
But
very
for
true.
this thing, you're right. Now, now we've talked about a lot of things here, but we interacted because of one thing, because of SimplyFI. So I wanted to delve into that as well, because I got a lot of information, a lot of practical knowledge through this Facebook group that you are a moderator of that group, I
Right.
believe.
So maybe let me tell a quick story about SimplyFI. SimplyFI it stands for Simply Financial Independence, and it's also a pun for simplify, which is a way to simplify the way we deal with finance.
Right.
So this is a Facebook group with, I think, close to 30,000 followers or group members in the UAE. It was founded several years ago by a group of people, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Sebastian Aguilar, who basically was one of the founders. And he is someone who came to Dubai, and within just 7 years, he was able to save, retire, and he was able to retire in just 7 years.
Really?
Which is awesome. It's not big. It's not for everyone, but this is just to show that it is actually doable by just following this simple investment approach. So the way I got into SimplyFI or SimplyFI, I found this group when I was starting my research about financial independence, and I became a member of the group, and I started contributing, or maybe initially I was asking questions myself and I was learning, and I then started sharing some of the things that I read somewhere or that information that I learned somewhere else. And one day, Sebastian got in touch with me and asked me if I want to join the board or to be part of the moderators on the group. And I said yes, although I said I'm new to this, so I don't know anything that you guys do. He said no, I mean, we're all there's no professional in the group. We're all amateur. We're just learning from each other, and you just do whatever you're doing. Just join us if that's what you'd like to do. And I said, yeah, of course.
When was that?
Opportunity. That was during COVID. I believe it was March or April 2020.
Okay, because what I was about trying to visualize is the way that I was interacting with the group, and I came to know about you around the same time or a little before, because you might be interacting in the group before that as well.
I used to share a few things before I became a moderator, but jointly after I became a moderator in the group, I had the opportunity to work with the team or with the rest of the board members on a guide which we call the SimplyFI Getting Started Guide for for investing and financial independence. And this is basically it kind of, because I noticed after joining the group that the same questions get asked over and over again. I said, like, why don't we just create a kind of a manual using layman's terms, like easy terms that anyone can grasp. Someone just like me who has zero background in finance, how anyone could basically read the book, or not the book, the ebook, in just maybe a couple of hours or an hour or so, and then he or she could implement this straight away.
And it's free. The good thing
It's
is
totally free.
totally free.
So for those who'd like to, maybe you might include a link to the actual Facebook group. So they just go to the Facebook group, and the guide is actually in the first pinned comment in the group.
Yeah, and I see always this comment coming up that you should read this getting started first and then talk about the other things later on, because that guide I have read it, and it is comprehensive for people from, let's say, coming from the US or coming from the Europe, or let's say coming from the Middle East, Pakistan, India, anywhere. This should be a startup guide. If you want to invest in index fund, this is the basic guide, because there are so many, because it's very simple, but there are so many caveats while investing to index fund.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
not simple as you go to any broker and buy the index fund, or let's say ETF, because then you have to see the tax implications as well. Then you have to see the state tax as well. In sad case of, let's say, your demise, then you have to think about so many things. So can you delve onto a bit?
Sure. And by the way, this is one of the mistakes that I made when I first started.
Okay.
Because when I first started reading and learning about ETFs and investing in ETFs, you typically get exposed. When you do that, you get exposed to the US ETFs that are basically covered in those books or manuals, or even articles that you read all over the internet. But there's a catch here. The catch is when you invest in ETFs that are domiciled, or that are, let's say, created and managed in the US, there's a catch. And the catch is, first off, you pay 30% of dividends withholding tax, which means for any dividends you get, 30% of that is automatically withheld at the source by your broker. And people think that, well, I live in the UAE, why do I have to pay that tax? This tax is actually created for those who are non-Americans. So for anyone who's not American or not living in the US, this tax applies, even if we're living in the UAE. So living in the UAE, although this is a tax-free country, that doesn't basically shield you from the 30% of withholding tax.
Correct.
And that is one tax. The other more serious tax that people don't know about is that when you invest in the US market, in case something, for example, in case the investor passes away, up to 40% of that money could get basically,
the government can take it away
exactly
as a tax.
Correct. So we call this inheritance tax, or estate. The technical term is estate tax. And unfortunately, people don't know that. So, and let me give that. Let me explain that using an example. So, for example, if I have $100,000 worth of Apple stocks, if I die, basically 40% of that money, or to be more accurate, anything below $60,000 is okay. Anything above $60,000 will get taxed up to 40%. So imagine, like, probably half of this money will go away in taxes instead of my family using that money to support themselves. So the catch here is to avoid, if you're not American, it's best to avoid US ETFs. And instead, there are other ETFs that have the exact same basket, or the same construction, let me say, or the same components, but instead of being domiciled or created and managed in the US, they are created and managed, or their legal structure is actually created in Ireland, which is a tax-friendly location or country for non-Americans like you and me.
Yeah.
So basically, for non-Americans, my advice is, advice is a big word. What I would say for non-Americans, avoid the American or the US domiciled ETFs, and focus instead on ETFs that are issued in Europe. These ETFs typically have UCITS or UCITS in the name. So if the ETF has UCITS in the name, it means it's it's created and it's domiciled in Europe, typically in Ireland or in Luxembourg or some other countries as well. Ireland is probably one of the best countries for ETFs because of its
Tax
tax
structure.
rules.
Right.
Correct.
You mentioned 30% tax on dividends on the US domiciled ETF. So what about those Irish domiciled ETFs? Are those also like they must have some tax, but not 30%, right?
That's correct. So the same ETF, let's take as an example an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. And for those who don't know, the S&P 500 is basically a basket that tracks the top 500 stocks in the US. And there is a couple of multiple ETFs in the US that track the S&P 500. For example, SPY or SPY or VOO, just as an example. So these track the 500 companies or the S&P 500. In Ireland, there are similar ETFs. Sorry, I forgot the ticker symbols for those, or the ticker symbol is just the 3 or 4 letters that describe the actual ETF for those who don't know that. So the same ETF or similar ETFs exist in Europe. So if you're into SPY, which is the US S&P 500, you end up paying 30% in dividend withholding. However, if you are with the exact same thing, I think it's VUSA if I'm not wrong. Don't quote me for this, but so if you're in the exact same thing, which is the S&P 500 that is domiciled in Ireland, instead of 30%, your tax bill is reduced to 15%. And this is as good as it gets for non-Americans. Okay. I mean, we cannot really dodge this 15%, but at least instead of paying 30, now we're paying 15%, which is great. And the other advantage is, even if I cross 60,000, I reach 100, 200, even $1 million, no, there's no risk of estate tax because your money, I mean, the US estate tax rules do not apply for or to funds that are domiciled in Ireland.
And having said that, having said all this, I would also like you to tell us that, let's say if somebody is not aware about these things, even then I would still say that people should go and invest at least, and then read this getting started guide. But at the same time, invest with a small amount, because even if you're investing, let's say up to $10,000, $20,000 to start with, this will not impact you so much because it's the amount is small. But once it gets more, then it will gets to impact you in both in terms of dividends and also the estate tax. So somebody who is starting should not worry too much about these things for the beginning, because then you have so many brokers as well, which are giving you incentive to, let's say, transfer the money, because you have to invest the money, you have to transfer the money from your bank account, let's say UAE bank account, to their brokerage account. So it's easier for the beginner. But once you reach to a certain limit, or let's say you understand fully how things are working, then you can go into such kind of let's say Irish domiciled ETF. To start with, you can do this, but let's say if you're not aware about it, to start with anything is important.
That's a great point, because I mean, many people, they kind of procrastinate because they think it's too complicated.
Yes.
And they are so afraid of making any mistakes, and they end up making a bigger mistake, which is not starting. So I always tell people, start now, optimize later, because people would like to get everything perfectly right from the get-go. It's kind of impossible. I made mistakes myself. Did it cost me a lot? I mean, in terms of investing in ETFs, not really. Yeah, maybe I would have selected a better, between quotes, ETF. Once I learned about the Irish domiciled ETFs, I basically moved my money there. But it wasn't the end of the world for me. Right. So I would tell people, start now and optimize later. And maybe for those who don't even want to learn about how to do it by themselves, there are now robo-advisors. There's a couple in the UAE, and I think you've covered some of them in here. Yeah. A robo-advisor is a low-cost, let's say, service. I mean, financial service that allows you to invest in ETFs, in index funds, basically, with a very small fee. So you don't have to manage anything. You don't have to buy anything yourself. You just transfer your money to the robo-advisor, and based on your I would say risk profile, they can create a portfolio of ETFs for you, and they do all the heavy lifting. So you just transfer your money there. So if you want the easiest option of them all, just pick one of the well-known robo-advisors in the country. And basically, even if you leave the UAE at some point in time, you could keep your account. So there's nothing wrong with that. So basically, just start with a robo-advisor, and maybe once you gain the confidence of how to do it by yourself, it's not rocket science.
Yes.
I repeat, it's not rocket science. And yeah, so once you reach that point of being comfortable doing this on your own, then you can basically take the money from the robo advisor, and you could replicate the same strategy yourself.
Yeah, because again, if you go through the post on SimplyFI, it's a very good group. It gives you all kind of flavors, whatever it's possible within the UAE. If you go through that again, reading this getting started guide, it will give you this I think it's 30 page or plus.
It's 40 pages,
Yeah.
but the gist of it, you can get it from the first 20 pages.
Okay.
And by the way, just for the record, I mean, pretty much I have similar content of on my YouTube channel. So if you're more of a visual learner, you could basically possibly visit my YouTube channel.
I've been watching your videos, but you're not consistent. That's the thing. Now there comes the willpower and also
Exactly,
the system you have to implement.
Good point. Guilty as charged. I haven't been consistent, unfortunately, on my YouTube channel. As you probably know, this is something I'm doing on the side, and sometimes life gets in the way. But that's not an excuse. I definitely need to get back to posting videos. But I have, I think, 6 or 7 videos by now. So if you watch these, you will understand the gist of the idea behind index investing. And I try, as I mentioned earlier, to keep things very simple for someone who doesn't understand a single word about finance, so can basically follow through.
So yeah, for sure, I'll mention your YouTube channel in the description of this video. There are a few things that I want to discuss. One is about, I have seen your video about insurance scams.
Oh, yeah.
So this is one thing I need to discuss. After that, we need to discuss about different asset classes that you can invest in while you are in the UAE, and why only index fund, or let's say why index fund is the most preferred reason for you, let's say. But talk to me about this insurance scam, as because I have seen these scams in Pakistan. I've known people from India, they also got into, actually these are not scams as scams.
These are legal scams.
These are legal scams.
Yeah,
so how
totally.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of, sorry, before you begin, because a lot of people fall into it, and I know, and the beginners fall into it very often than the experienced ones.
And it's not just beginners, believe me.
Yeah.
And I fell into that trap myself.
Okay.
Not once, not twice, but thrice.
Really?
Oh yeah. So because I mean, back in the day, I used to work myself for a I mean, in an insurance group, and being part of the company, the natural thing to do is to buy one of their products, right? So I bought one of their long-term investment / insurance plans, and I thought that this is the wise thing to do, because you put some money aside automatically each month. They withdraw it from your bank account. You don't have to worry about anything. They manage everything for you. Great on paper. But then I learned how bad these plans are. I mean, the minute you start looking under the hood, once you understand the fees that are being charged by these plans, these are really mind-blowing. And just to give the audience a rough idea about what I'm talking about here. So the typical basket of, say, stocks and bonds, or the ETFs, or the market in general, like we mentioned earlier, the market returns around 10% per year. And that is if you're completely 100% in stocks. Let's say a basket of stocks and bonds returns, let's say, for the sake of example, for the sake of argument, 8%, right? These plans charge you close to 4.5% in fees.
In fees?
Yeah. I mean, the typical person, and myself included, would say like 4% or 5% in fees. What's 5% between friends, right? They're managing everything for you. But the thing is, it's 4% out of your expected returns of 8%. So you're literally giving away 50% of your profit to these companies. But it doesn't end here. The thing is, these fees compound over time. So when you get into the plan for, let's say, typically 20, 25, or even 30 years, these fees compound over time. And at the end of the period, instead of, say, and this is something I gave as an example in one of my YouTube videos. So at the end of the period, instead of ending up with, say, $1 million, you will end up with like close to $300. Where did that 700K disappear?
In the fee.
Yes, exactly. But the thing is, you don't get to see that. And nobody talks about it, and no one knows about these fees. And reading Unshakable by Tony Robbins is the first book that kind of shed some light on these extravagant fees that we were paying without noticing. And like I said, I did not make the mistake twice. I made it thrice, because I had a plan when I first started in my company. I mean, not in my company, when I used to work for an insurance group. And then when I moved around, a friend of mine actually sold me another one.
Really?
Let me correct that. I approached him for him because I wanted to buy.
So you were already into a plan. You
Yes,
were already.
I was already in a plan, and then I approached a friend of mine, and I told him I need another plan, because I thought that this is the smart thing to do. And yet again, several years later, and that was after I was in the UAE. I took a third one because, again, I thought I was being smart and I was diversifying my money into 3 plans.
Really?
But what I ended up doing is, like, I lost a lot of. And by the way, what I don't really like about these plans is that they lock you in, because the plan is designed in such a way that if you, for example, stop the plan after, let's say the plan is for 25 years, and if you stop after 5, 6, or even 7 years, you will lose money. But the thing is, what they don't tell you is that you don't really lose money when you stop. You lose money from the minute you sign on the paper, because basically, roughly speaking, close to 18 months, which is a year and a half worth of your contribution, of your initial contributions, they go literally to the pocket of the agent or the broker who sold you the plan. Now, of course, you will, if you look at your statement, you will see that, yeah, I've contributed, say, $1,000 per month. Let's take this as an example. After a couple of years, you have 24, say, $1,000. But in reality, 18 months out of this money has gone in fees upfront. So yeah, you will see that at the bottom line, you have 24,000. But in reality, the money that you really own is what we call the surrender value of that plan. The surrender value is like, when you want to exit the plan, they call it the surrender value minus the fees or the penalty, as they call it. But in reality, these are the fees that you have already paid upfront. So the minute you sign on that paper, you've already lost.
So that is front loading of all the costs to you.
Oh yes,
in technical terms.
I mean, I don't want to make it more complex to the audience, but most of it is pretty much front loaded, and there is a small sum that will follow you until the end of times, until you finish the plan, pretty much.
Yeah.
So in most cases, the best thing to do, and which is something that I did, I exited all these plans at a loss, obviously, and I then reinvested the proceeds in a portfolio of ETFs that I manage myself.
Right.
And I never looked back. So yes, it might look like a loss, but the sad truth is that you've already lost the money the minute you signed that.
And you've learned by mistake. So
it was a costly mistake.
Yeah. There is another point within the insurance thing, is that I've seen a lot of people actually, but when somebody sells you insurance, they're talking about your own well-being. Talking about, I'm putting aside health insurance aside, we're talking about life insurance. So what they couple is life insurance with the investment plan, which is always a
bad idea.
Yeah. So talk to me about this life insurance plus the the investment plans.
Sure. I mean, when you combining life insurance with an investment or a saving plan, to me, is like combining water with oil. So I mean, you can shake them all you want, but they don't mix well.
Right. Very nice example. Yeah.
So what I would do is if you want to insure your life, which is great if you have some dependents and you want to make sure that they are taken care of in case something bad happens. The best way to go about this is to buy what we call a term life insurance. A term life insurance is basically a plan that covers basically it's a life insurance. So you don't get anything back if at the end of the term, because there's no saving aspect to it. That is exactly similar to like insuring your car. But the thing is, the broker or the agent that is selling you or that is proposing this will almost always try to convince you to go for a whole life insurance. Why? Because of course it pays them the highest commission. And they play on the scare factors, like, yeah, but you know what? if you take if you go for a term life insurance, this is money that you're wasting, right? Why don't you go for this plan, which has some kind of a investment part of it? Don't fall for this trap, because, like I said, would you feel bad if you bought a car insurance and you don't get into a car accident? Of course not.
Of course not.
Right? So why do we feel bad if we buy a life insurance and we don't get anything if we don't die? Right? So basically, the thing is, if you want to do, if you want to secure, if you have some dependents and you want to make sure that they are taken care of, get a term life insurance, and with the difference, just invest the difference in a portfolio of low cost index funds. Or if you want to keep it super simple, you can go with one of the like I mentioned before, the robo advisors, and they can do it for you for a very, very small nominal fee.
Yeah, I mean, the keeping life insurance and investment apart is very important, also because you always will think, okay, this is the amount of investment I've done and some small amount of profit I'm getting as well. So you're always like, you can say, I mean, I don't know, these guys who are selling it, they're selling it very easily, because these kind of things which are kind of legal scam, they are easy to sell.
And they are well trained, and
Yeah.
like I said, they play on the scare factor, and they use some psychology tactics to get you hooked.
People will always think that I'm not draining my money. It's going to somewhere which is also keeping me safe in case something happens to me, and my family will get the money. And also, I'm investing at the end of the term, I will get something. But all the people that I know, the elder people, because of course, for my age, people haven't gone till the end of that insurance or investment scam. But all the people who are elderly, they always say that it's very small amount that we receive. And by the way, this is not only for within the UAE. It's this scam is across the world. Even in Pakistan, I've seen in my Indian colleagues also tell me that this scam is everywhere.
Now, even in the US, in the UK, even in the Western, let's say, well-established countries, they still have the same thing. Actually, J.L. Collins, best-selling author of The Simple Path to Wealth, has written something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that how this thing is legal, or how this scam is legal, I can't tell, but it is. So that is referring to those whole life insurance plans. And even Tony Robbins mentions that in his book Unshakable, Your Financial Freedom Playbooks. He mentioned that these agents or brokers, they sell you products that are overpriced and they underperform.
Yeah.
So you're paying, like, it's like you're buying an iPhone for, say, 4,000 dirhams, and I pay 20 times that much or 10 times that much. I pay 40,000 dirhams for an iPhone 6S, which is beaten up and which doesn't even match your. It's really that crazy. You're paying 20% more for a product which is subpar. Which, I mean,
and the crazy part is that in Pakistan, I've seen bankers are doing this. Like there is a product. I don't know if you're aware about this. The term is bank assurance. So what they do is, if somebody is coming with a large sum of money and they know that this guy is having some money, and even if it's pension, his let's say gratuity money or anything like that, they lure them into, the banks lure them into this kind of product, and later on, after 2-3 years, they realize what happened to them. So even the bankers who are sitting in the cubicle and they're discussing with you, they can pitch you this kind of product.
Totally.
Yeah. So so we've discussed this a lot in my videos as well. I got this, my Urdu channel, I discuss a lot, and still people are falling to it. I don't know. Anyways, this we should talk about a lot of investment avenues within the UAE as well. So it's not only stocks. We have regional stocks as well. We have Saudi now coming up as well. We are here within the UAE. We have got a good stock market here as well. Then the real estate of Dubai, which is everybody's talking about. Yes. Totally. And also, whoever is coming here as an expat, they have got their home country, and they can invest in back home in their own countries as well. So there are a lot of avenues to invest once you are in the UAE. So how do you see about all these investment avenues?
I mean, all these investment avenues are great. I mean, to me personally, I prefer to go with as I said, with a global index fund, because at the end of the day, it has US stocks, it has European stocks, it has UAE stocks, it has Saudi stocks. It pretty much has everything.
Yeah.
So instead of me cherry picking the companies, I have all of these companies in a single index fund. Now, if you want to cherry pick companies, whether in the US or in the region or anywhere else, there's nothing wrong in doing this, of course, and some people make good money. But personally, because I don't have the time nor the energy of analyzing these stocks, and like I said before, even the professionals that do analyze individual stocks cannot over time, and over time I mean over a long period of time, there are multiple studies that have showed that you cannot beat the market, and by market I mean that global basket that has everything. So yes, you might get lucky maybe once or twice, that's great, but over the long term, I believe the easiest thing to me, I mean for me at least, what I do is I invest in a low cost index fund that has everything. So for example, if there's an IPO in Dubai or in the Gulf, some people I see them jumping on the IPOs, which is great. Again, nothing against that, but I personally prefer to wait because sooner or later that IPO will become part of my basket automatically without me doing anything.
Yeah.
So I'm the lazy type when it comes to investing, and again, it showed that over time, this is the easiest and the most efficient strategy over time. Just buy the entire world, wait, and then, continue adding money, of course, every month or whenever you can, and then let it ride.
100%. And talking about IPO, there is a very interesting thing because in my office as well, a lot of colleagues go into the IPO thing. And once you're subscribing to the IPO, it's not always that you will get all the shares that you want. Let's say recently Salik came, and then Dubai Taxi also was oversubscribed. So whenever you are subscribing to, and I'm sure once Emirates comes, it will be, I don't know how many times it will be oversubscribed. But the problem is with those people who are subscribing to the IPOs, they are not investing in the stock market later on. So let's say one of my friend got the shares of about 5,000 dirhams with the Salik, but it was like 1 year back Salik IPO came, and then after that he didn't invest a single dirham into it. And the problem is IPO investing, people think that okay, after that it will shoot, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But the thing is, you should be investing every month, not like in one IPO or two IPOs or three IPOs. It would have been better if you keep on investing in Salik. Let's say I'm just hypothetically saying, if you if you believe in one of the IPOs, then you should be believing in that company and keep on investing in it. But it's not the right way, I think, to invest in the IPO. You will get only, let's say, because not always you will get all the shares that you want. So you will get, let's say, 2,000 dirhams, 5,000 dirhams. It won't impact a lot. So later on, once the company is actually public, you can buy anything you want. And as you said, index investing, if you're doing index investing, you will be, in any case, you will be having this Salik or Dubai Taxi or anything that is invested through the global ETF, you can get into it. So these are all kind of opportunities that you get while you're in Dubai, which is a great part. At least you are getting exposure to it. And making a system is important. If you believe in real estate, if you believe in the index fund, if you believe in any of the investment ideology, you should make a system around it, and you should keep on investing in it, and that can eventually maybe help you beat the inflation. What about crypto? Do you invest in crypto? What are you thinking about crypto?
Well, first off, I'm not a crypto expert, and to me, crypto is the technology behind crypto is awesome. A blockchain, no single doubt about that. When it comes to crypto, to me, crypto is very similar to forex, right? So it's a currency. It's a digital currency, but it's a currency nonetheless. And the way I look at it is like, since it's a currency, I don't think it's gonna continue. It's yeah, I know. Maybe I'll get flamed because of that, because some people think that it's gonna go to the moon. And in all honesty, I bought some crypto coins myself a couple of years ago, and I just kept them. If it goes to the moon, I'm not gonna complain. If it goes down to zero, I wouldn't care less. So I used it with my play money, which is fine. But I see some people betting everything, betting the house, betting everything on crypto. To me, for my own taste, that is too risky. Maybe they got lucky. I'm not saying the opposite, but the thing is, nobody knows. This thing has been around for maybe 12 or 13 years. We don't have history like we do in the stock market. And the stock market, we have like more than a couple of centuries of like at least 150 years of stock market history that shows us at the very least that historically the stock market always rises with
Yeah.
time and beats inflation.
Yeah.
Is the same applicable to crypto? Maybe, but again, maybe not. So would I risk and would I bet the house on crypto? Not really. But like I said, I've bought some crypto coins. Sorry. If it explodes or if it goes to the moon, well and good. If it doesn't, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that I don't know, to be very honest. And even if you listen to professionals, you'll see the types that are 100% behind crypto and the others that think that this is a bubble that will ultimately pop. Which one is right? I honestly don't know, but I'm not willing to bet either way. So that's why I have some crypto coins. So if it explodes and goes to the moon, I'm gonna hopefully ride with it. If it goes to zero, it's not gonna be the end of the world because that's just a small portion of my portfolio.
Yeah, and then every new thing which is coming up, we are not sure about the trends. It's up to your whoever is watching, or let's say whoever is doing the investment, they should do the full due diligence and whatever assets you can see here, let's say real estate or let's say US stock market, it has a lot of data that you can relate with it. But for crypto, it's only 10 years old thing, and I've seen even 1 year old technology like AI, not 1 year old, let's say in commercial sense, let's say after chat gpt we've seen this for 1 year and it has done wonders. But myself, I haven't seen that kind of a use case for crypto. Again, a lot of people will come and comment that there are a lot of use cases, but again, those are there are fundamental things that crypto still has to address, which is not done yet. We've discussed a lot of things in this conversation. I hope people get some value out of it. So towards the end, what do you say about overall in the investment scene, and if somebody is going to invest now, as we discussed earlier as well, but do you have some steps to give to the audience to for the investment, especially in the low cost ETF?
Sure. In fact, I have a video on my YouTube channel about this topic. It's called 8 Steps for ETF Investment Success. And it goes as follows. So first off, it starts by basically paying any credit card debt you have, or any debt for that matter. And the reason why, and maybe this is something we did not touch upon earlier in the discussion, if you have a credit card debt, the interest you're paying on that credit card debt is close to 45% per year. It's crazy. So there's nothing on planet Earth, in my humble opinion, that can basically there's no return that can overcome or that can exceed that 45% per year consistent.
I'm sorry, I'm disrupting you here, but for the legal scams, this is one of the legal scam as well. The credit cards companies will always tell you monthly rates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they tell 3%, but hey, or 3.5%, but that is 3.5%. If you read the asterisk and the fine print, it's 3.3 to 3.5% per month.
Yes.
So the annual interest rate is basically close to 45%, which is outrageous. So first thing first, if you have credit card debt, don't you even consider investing in anything. Just go and make sure that you are basically paying off your credit card debt. Again, by living within your means, by making sure that you are paying that credit card. So this is the first step. The second step is basically to have some to build an emergency fund. An emergency fund that, like you mentioned earlier, is to put aside some money for a rainy day. For example, if my car breaks, or if I had to do some emergency repairs for the house, or if for whatever reason I had to travel for a family emergency, or whatever the case might be. So having usually 3, 6, or some people will stretch it even more. Let's say the average is 6 months worth of living expenses tucked away in an emergency fund, usually typically in a bank account that is easily accessible. So people sometimes try to optimize and get higher returns on that emergency fund. Great if you could do it, but that's not the purpose of the emergency fund. So emergency fund is just there for emergencies. So again, number 1, pay off your credit card debt. Number 2, build an emergency fund. Number 3, put some plan in place. And what do I mean by plan? And I kind of explain it in detail in one of my videos. So a plan is about deciding what ETFs you want to buy, your saving rate, which is the percentage of your salary you want to save and invest each month, and you pick the ETFs you invest in, and then you choose your asset allocation. Maybe this is something we didn't cover earlier. Asset allocation is the percentage of, let's say, stocks to bonds or different kind of asset classes inside your portfolio. And to quickly address this, the higher the percentage of stocks, the higher your long-term expected returns, but that means it's a bumpier ride. So,
and it depends on age as well.
It depends on age, but to me, it depends more on your risk tolerance.
Okay.
Because many people, they say, oh, you know what, I'm young and I can put everything in stocks. That's great, and we know that over time, stocks have returned 10% on average per year over the long term. But in shorter period of times, stocks could actually fall real bad. So the question is, when the stock market falls, because it does every once in a while, would you still continue investing or would you still maintain the plan? Many people will have second guesses and they withdraw. And this is one of the mistakes that many people do. They run and withdraw their money instead of keeping up and continuing with their investments.
So there is no system for them.
Exactly, because there is no system for them. So going back to the system thing, document your strategy or your system in it's a one-page document just for you to keep, because we are emotional creatures. When the stock market will dip, we will panic and we will tend to sell. But if you read those on a piece of paper that I'm not gonna sell, I'm investing that amount each month, whatever, no matter what happens in the stock market, I'm gonna buy my ETF on that particular day of the month, no matter whether the market is up, down, I don't care. So as long as you have those documented in place, your emotions are gonna take over. So have those documented so that you don't let your emotions drive the show.
Right.
Step number 4 is basically to open a trading account or an investment account. And then we reach the point where you transfer money each month or whatever you can into that account. You buy your ETF, and maybe once a year you rebalance. By rebalancing, I mean you always keep your asset allocation. For example, if I went for 60% stocks as an example and 40% bonds, these tend to change with time according to how the market moves. So rebalancing is always making sure that I have 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds, or whatever my allocation is. It's basically rebalance. I mean, by rebalancing, I mean selling whatever went up and buying whatever went down, so that they always maintain the same balance over time. And the last 2 steps, I would say, number 1, avoid investment mistakes. We briefly mentioned them, like don't panic and sell. Don't try to chase past performance. Don't try to chase the last shiny objects. Don't try to outsmart the market, because you simply can't. Even the professionals can't. So what are the chances of someone that like you or me doing it, right? So don't get delusional and don't try to outsmart the market. And the last step is basically stay the course. And by staying the course, I mean continue adding money consistently. Like you mentioned earlier, consistency is key. It's just like going to the gym, right? You cannot go to the gym and expect to be super healthy or muscular in just a couple of times. You need to go to the gym repetitively 3 times a week or whatever the case might be. So consistency, and you need to maintain consistency when it comes to investing on a regular basis. And the last step in the framework that we briefly described is basically, so we said avoid investment mistakes. And the last one is basically stay away or ignore all financial news, because the news are there to get you. The newspapers are there to sell newspapers, or to get your click if it's like something that is scary, because I mean we get driven by fear, right, and by emotions. So whatever happens, just tune out all the noise, stay the course, continue adding money no matter what, because every single time there is a narrative that is usually and typically scary. Like, let's go back to March 2020. Oh, the COVID is bad, it's gonna crash all the economy. And look where we are today. I mean, it recovered and continued its upward trajectory. And that is not just in COVID. In 2007-8, we had the same thing. In 2000-2002, we had the same thing. So every single time, the narrative or the story is different, but it's a scary story. But then I can guarantee is a big word, but if we are to use the past as a teaching lesson for us, over the last 150 to 200 years, the stock market is resilient and it has always recovered. Not a single time. So every single time where there was a bear market, or let's say a correction or a drop in the market, it has corrected and continued its upwards trajectory. So I would say these are my 9 or the 9 steps framework that anyone can follow without knowing much about finance. Just, get your basics done, then invest regularly on a regular basis, whether monthly or quarterly. Tune out the noise and stay the course, and don't make the typical investment mistakes that we mentioned earlier. Right. And that's pretty much it.
Thanks a lot, Elie. It has been a insightful conversation, and I'm actually glad that you came over. And I hope your investment journey, along with the others, goes on the moon. And also about good luck for your YouTube channel. I hope that you stay consistent in that as well, apart from your investment journey.
I definitely need to stay more consistent. You're right.
So thanks a lot, and it was nice, insightful, and I hope we collaborate in future as well.
Definitely. Thank you, Wali. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.